The Early Weigh-In Podcast is back. First trip to UFC's new Meta Apex this week. UFC Vegas 113, 13 fights to go through. Banger main event at the bantamweight division. We got Mario Bautista taking on Vinicius Oliveira. And then a co-main event, top-ranked flyweights, Amir Albazi taking on Horiguchi. Man, both of us in the red last week, but always transparent. Gonna talk about how we finished up. And for your boy here, minus 0.89 units and a little bit salty because I felt like my reads were there. I'm going to go ahead and start on the one that didn't really matter, which was the Lopez scorecards, no action. I feel like it was a great bet, at the odds we got it. Didn't really play out how we thought it was. Looking at my straight bets, Khalif didn't really start out how we wanted to, man, but as soon as he got the positions, he ran right through Oban Elliott on the mat. I cashed Khalif sub prop on the side for myself as well. And then the other hit for me was under 2.5 rounds on the Dan Hooker and Benoit St. Denis. Actually lasted a little bit longer than I thought it would, but both of them clearly hurt to the body. All the time BSD had on top. It was violence from the get-go. I thought minus 165 was pretty generous. And to my two losses, man, Sebastian Salazar, I thought the dude was clearly the better fighter, and it looked like it on fight night, man. He just clearly outclassed Nakamura. I will say toward the end of round 3, it did start to look a little bit hairy. I didn't really see it coming, though, man. Salazar still had him backed up against the cage and everything. Salty to lose that one. I know you'll talk about that fight as well. And then the under 1.5 in the Junior Tafa Billy Alicana fight, man. Even for Tafa to land his shots in round 1 the way he did. And as soon as Billy Alicana got his positions, ran right through him and missed the under 1.5 by like 30 seconds. So felt like my reads were there. It's not a bad loss, 0.89 units, but looking to finally get in the green this week, man. Toss it over to you.
I guess a similar feeling. My first bet, 0.5 units on Torres Finney. I was pretty upset with the game plan coming into it, but he did kind of correct me whenever he posted the video of him actually initially injuring his knee. It was before the first 30 seconds of the fight, not when he started to show it mid-fight. And so I'll give him a little bit of slack there. I only put 0.5 units on it. I wasn't terribly convinced that he was going to win, but I thought I'd give it a shot. That did not pan out. The Jonathan Khalif fight, you touched on it. I thought he looked terrible to begin with, and even though he won, I'm still kind of concerned that might have been a bad bet, or at the very minimum, I'm looking to fade him in the future. He did not look how I thought he was going to. And then the Sizaleh wins by decision at plus 240. I had a unit on that, so a nearly 3.5 unit swing, and we were 30 seconds away from cashing it. That one really hurts. Would have turned around the night for sure. Fight not to start round 2 in the Tuivasa versus Teixeira fight. I don't know who was expecting that one to go the distance, but absolute slop fest. Fun one to watch, I guess. I mean, we were at least cracking up whenever we were on Discord. So, and then Lopez scorecards, no action. Glad that we bet it the way that we did, because after like the second round, I was kind of convinced like, okay, this is not hitting. Just make it to the end. Ended up being a negative night, minus 2.06 units. Hopefully finding some better spots on this week's card, where we start in the women's bantamweight division. Priscilla Cachoeira taking on Claudia Saigula. I just think that Cachoeira is just, even though she's not great at MMA, I think that she's the true MMA fighter here. So even though she's a little bit older, I think she does have a disadvantage if it goes to the ground. I think that she's going to be landing the more significant strikes. I think that it might get hairy for one round, but for the majority of the fight, I think that she's going to be winning minutes, and I think that she's going to land the bigger shots and ultimately win the fight on the judges' scorecards. So for me, I'm taking Priscilla Cachoeira. She is a dog, so I'm not totally opposed to, if I get talked into it later on in the week, to actually putting a little bit of money on her. But for now, it's dog or pass for me. I cannot get behind Saigula under the UFC banner at favorite money. Just complete pass on that.
I think it's going to be a pass for me altogether. I agree with your last statement there. I think ultimately I'm going to side the opposite side with Saigula, but I'm not excited to say that. I'd never lay chalk on her. I feel like she's one of those girls a bit more concerned with the online presence and things in her MMA career, but you do see her at ATT. You see her training with some good names, and she's shown that she can mix up her game, can go to the mat like she did last time. I do think she's a bit more technical at range, but there's some point where physicality is what matters in women's MMA. And, I feel like Priscilla might have a a big physicality edge, even in the clinch at times here. But especially at plus 125, or maybe you can get a little bit better. I can't get behind Cachoeira. I think she's finish or bust in a lot of her fights. Her durability seems to be fading. She can't really defend a takedown or get off her back. And at 37 or something, I believe she is, it doesn't really excite me. However, you weren't as eager as I thought you might be, but an under, man, under 2.5 is pretty much, it's minus 105, minus 110. You're looking at close to 50% for a zombie girl fight inside the distance in the new Apex small cage. Like, I think before I bet a side, I'd look first fight, zombie girl violence at a decent number, but make it interesting. I'll take Segula submission. Moving on up the card, I do think we have a submission in this fight. I think I might be on a little bit of an island here. We got Muin Gafurov taking on Jakub Wiklax. I took the dog here in Wiklax in our fantasy league, so I'm tempted to almost kind of trust my gut, and kind of want to bet him as well. I kind of expected him, he just came off a win over Patchy Mix. Like, I kind of expected him to at least be pick'ems. I didn't really expect to see plus money next to his name. But at the same time, Gafurov coming off a big upset himself. But for Wiklax, confidence, man. You just beat Patchy Mix. You got your debut out of the way. I think he's got a superior gas tank, taller, longer fighter. I think that's good for his game. Really likes to rely on that jiu-jitsu on top position. This guy's got a nasty guillotine as well that he really threatened Patchy with. And, Patchy is a really, really elite grappler if you can say anything good about him. And the way, he had to get to the back. He had to roll over multiple things to get out of the guillotine. And I feel like he's going to put Gafurov there, man. He's going to have the length to really threaten with it. And then Wiklax took Patchy down, double-legged him, locked in the leg laces like Khabib does. Like, this guy does know what he's doing on the mat. And I think if he's still there and Gafurov slowing down in 2-3, I think sub plus 330 is a little bit live. Gafurov's just a guy for me he's just there. He's kind of just like a solid anti-wrestle boxer, but doesn't really carry a ton of power. Can stop good wrestlers, but this guy can lose to Chad Anheliger. He can lose to John Castaneda. And even when he wins, I was watching this fight against Kang Ho Kong. He gets mounted in that fight. Like, he's giving up bad positions in some of these grappling exchanges. So if he's willing to grapple with Wiklax, I think he's going to get put in dangerous spots, man. So I feel like I'm on an island. I'm not betting Muin Gafurov this week. It's Wiklax or pass, and Wiklax sub plus 330, sub 2, like plus 1,000, plus 1,700 round 3. I think that's kind of how I'm looking at it.
I don't hate it, but I am going to side with Muin Gafurov here. I think for the grappling, he does more often than not wind up on top. So even if it's not for extended periods of time, I think that if and when he gets the fight to the mat, it's going to be optically in his favor. Wiklax is great at scrambling, so I do think it's going to be very difficult for Gafurov to hold him down. But when it's on the feet, I do expect Gafurov to land the more punishing shots. Jakub Wiklax really likes to eat punches, keeps that chin right up in the air, and although he can take that punishment, it's not the greatest look, especially if this goes the distance, which I do expect it to do. So this is, for me, I kind of understand the line movement, and I wind up being on the Muin Gafurov side. Probably won't get there as far as betting, though. Moving on to the women's flyweight division, we have Kong Wang taking on Eduardo Mora. As far as female unders go, this is kind of the under that I'd like a little bit better than the opening fight on this card.
Yeah.
I think Kong Wang, for the time that it stays on the feet, she's going to be, able to land at will, land some pretty devastating shots. And although Eduardo Mora hasn't ever been finished professionally, I do think that she's subject to just, be a deer in the headlights whenever it comes to Kong Wang's ability to strike. She strikes hard and fast, and she can keep it on the feet. I think it's going to be a quick night in the office. Whereas Eduardo Mora, as this extends, we start to see Kong Wang slow down. If she can get into some of her grappling positions, I think that there's also opportunity for her to kind of exploit Kong Wang's grappling the same way that I forget her name, Gabriella or
Fernandez.
who was it? Fernandez. Yeah. Gabriela Fernandez was a few fights ago. So this is an under spot for me. I am leaning towards the favorite in Kong Wang, but I think that line's a little bit out of pocket for somebody who is pretty one-dimensional as far as MMA goes. So under for me is how I would bet it, and Kong Wang being the favorite, I understand. I think she gets the knockout.
Yeah, I happened to take a peek at these odds before I was watching tape, and first thing for me was the dog might be live here. It's because at first instinct you got the plus 200 who's going to be the one shooting takedowns, going to be the one trying to get this fight to the mat, and that's always a bit tempting to me here. But when I went in, when I went into tape, former 115 man, I expect her to potentially struggle even with Wang in the clinch at times. Mora's gas tank in the past hasn't been crazy impressive, and I feel like she's going to have to work hard here at times. So not so much eager on the dog after I was watching tape. And, man, on the feet, this is clearly the Kong Wang side. Better prospect as well, much higher ceiling. You know, you see the backstory with Valentina and everything. And when I was watching her fight with Fernandez, I can't help but think, you know, it's probably a good loss, dude. You know, she was showing up with the Joker mask, getting in the face. Like, she was super, super cocky. And so I feel like it was one of those where maybe leveled her up, humbled her a little bit, and was a good thing for her career, man. And I kind of like that under with you. It's plus 150 for an under 2.5, plus 120, 125 for it doesn't go the distance, and even plus 320 for a TKO prop for Kong Wong. So that's all something I've kind of been tempting as well, because I think Wong's going to have her opportunity to find the TKO. And if Mora's going to stand a chance here, she's got to get the fight to the mat. And she's going to get in positions to finish well. So maybe both of us like that under. Something we have to eye at plus money. Moving on up, bantamweight division, Saeed Nurmagomedov versus Basharat bro, Javid Basharat. You know, ultimately, man, I feel like this line is probably pretty accurate. I'm curious to see it after round one. You know, the books have kind of gotten sharp on the live number, but I feel like Nurmagomedov has a solid chance to win round one. He's dangerous. He's explosive, nasty front chokes. So, you know, to me, round one, honestly, feels like a 50-50 fight. But it's the back half of the fight where I feel like Javid's skill set's kind of going to shine. You know, I feel like on the back half of this fight, I trust his volume a bit more. I trust him to land offensive takedowns. He showed me the better gas tank. So not a crazy finisher. You know, Syed's never been stopped in his career as well. So I like Javid Basharat by decision, but it always is a little bit hairy laying chalk when I feel like he's going to have to win 2 and 3 and good chance of dropping 1. So Basharat decision, Basharat live. I'm on the Javid side here.
I find myself on the opposite side. I think Javid's going to struggle at range with Saeed's kicking game. And whenever he does shoot in for that takedown, Saeed's guillotine is like one of the best in the UFC. And I think that he probably finds it. Javid's got that big old head. And I really do think that he's like primed to get guillotined by Saeed here and bust all those Basharat brother parlays that I expect to be played this week. So Saeed's the play for me. I'll probably find it. I think in the past I've been on a Saeed. Actually, I can remember it was the Saeed Yakub Kakramanov or whatever. Yeah. I think that was a negative EV bet, but Saeed pulled it out for me, you know? Yeah. So I was happy about that win, but I think it's something similar where he finds the sub. And if he can frustrate Javid at range, I think that comes sooner rather than later in the fight. So, yeah, I'm looking at Saeed for sure, especially at dog money. Moving on to the strawweight division, Bruna Brazil taking on Ketlin Souza. Man, okay, so I kind of think that there's an opportunity for Bruna Brazil to win here. I know that, let's see, the odds have really swung in the direction of Ketlin Souza, but I think that let's see, at one point, yeah, okay. I don't know. I think that Bruna Brazil has the opportunity to stay at range, utilize her kicking game, and just skirt out a victory here. What's working against her is her volume. Multiple times she's only thrown less than 50 strikes over the course of 3 rounds, And she could really get into some trouble because on the flip side, Ketlin Souza usually does pretty good with volume, but I don't think that she's as good as her, like knockout record would suggest. I think she's good, but I think styles make matchups. And Bruna Brazil's going to look for opportunities to get on her bike, play at range, and just kind of skirt out that decision victory. And I think that this could be one of those ones where she could get away with it. Now, the only thing that gives me pause for concern is that we are in the smaller octagon, and I think that's going to be harder with Souza chasing her down. I can't get over. I'm just not going to get stuck at minus 160, minus 170 or something on Ketlin Souza, and then her just be chasing Bruna Brazil around the entire octagon for 15 minutes. So it's a pass for me, or bet the dog Bruna Brazil. There are better spots on this card though, so I recommend passing.
There's better spots on this fight than the Souza money line, man. I think Souza inside the distance at plus 450 is a decent look, dude. Souza's finished 10 of her 15 wins, 8 by TKO, and we've seen Bruna Brazil TKO 3 times already, man. I think she's a fragile girl. She does like to fight long, but it's a small octagon. She likes to rely on the kicks. Dude, I think she's going to get backed up. I think she'll get backed up into the fence. I think she's easily out physical, easy bullied, and Souza's a discount Andrade. Like she's not afraid to bite on the mouthpiece, swing big hooks to close the distance. We've seen her KO Haregi, the competitive splits with Pierre Rodriguez, Angela Hill. Brazil's not going to go out here and land like 6 takedowns or something like Pierre Rodriguez does. She's not going to go out here and attempt or land. It was like 80 significant strikes attempted north of 100. Like that's not Brazil's game like it is Angie Hill. So I think Souza's honestly worthy of being a favorite here. I think she's got takedown upside. I think she's got knockout upside. Far more dangerous, more physical girl here. So it's actually, I saw minus 155 on DraftKings. I now see a minus 148. So Bruna Brazil is getting a little bit of love. She got some fighting nerds, coaches, teammates here this week, but this is Ketlin Souza for me, man. I took her in the fantasy league as well. I like her potential to finish this fight inside the distance. And at plus 450, man, Brazil has been finished. And I against girls that don't have the finishing resume of Souza. So I think I'm going to take a small poke, quarter unit, win north of a unit or something there for me. We got a short notice fight at 170. Nikolai Veretinikov taking on the legend, man, Nico Price. I feel like Veretinikov's kind of getting himself a winnable fight. This is the first time where I feel like he's been the decent-sized favorite in the UFC. Probably doesn't really have to worry about someone wrestling here. I feel like Nico might have an advantage there, but, dude comes to bang. Veretinikov, solid power, better striker, and something tells me really at this point, man, just landing on Nico Price's chin might be enough. He seems pretty far past it, not being able to take the shots he used to. Full of just injuries, looks slow. Now on short notice, man, it feels like it's a check to feed the 10 kids, So I got Veretinikov TKO. Not really excited about that because I don't think he's that good of a fighter. He slows, but could be a good fight. But as long as Nico holds in, I don't know if the chin's there anymore. So I think Veretinikov probably does get the job done inside the distance.
Yeah, I actually, as much as he isn't that good of a fighter, I think that Veretinikov is one of the safer parlay pieces of the week. Like, Nico Price is so over the hill, it's hard to actually explain, but he is just taking this fight purely for the money. He looks slow. He looks like he doesn't have the durability that got him so far in his UFC career. And you look back on a lot of his wins. I'm not saying that they're all flukes. I'm just saying a lot of them are fights that I don't think that he could replicate if they ran it back, And right. So I just, as much as I like him as a person and as a excitement factor wise, I think that he's a fun fighter for sure. But I just think he's so far over the hill and has a ton of mileage on him at 36 years old. I know these guys are around the same age and around the same amount of losses, but I just think that this is a pretty easy Nikolai Veretinikov fight. And even though he's getting into like the minus 250s to minus 270s, I still think it's actually pretty safe, which is kind of wild to say. Right. So, yeah, give me Veretinikov here. moving on to staying at the 170-pound, it's the prelim main event. Alex Morono taking on Denis Donchenko. Donchenko throws really hard, really fast, and he's really good at finishing the fights early. I am, eager to see him get extended, especially against UFC caliber opponents. I think that Morono, especially down the stretch, could make him pay on the mat. I think we talked about the Morono by submission. It's at like 22-1 right now on FanDuel, and I think it comes down before fight time. I think Donchenko, even though it might not be Alex Morono who exposes him for being a fraud, I think that the sub line is enough for me to probably get involved, at least on a sprinkle 0.25 unit. So I think Morono by submission, and I think that it happens late too. So I might find Morono submission round 2 and then a Morono submission round 3 at plus 5,000, and that might be how I play it. But it's going to be tight for that first round because Donchenko goes out there and throws really hard. So pass for me, but I'll probably sprinkle some on Morono.
Yeah, I don't see Morono pulling this one out. Always kind of been that decent boxer, bounces around early, sneaky submission, slick little guillotine if he can hurt you and wrap it up. But durability's massively letting him down lately. Cardio's letting him down lately. Bouncing around early, come the second and third round, a lot more flat-footed, huffing and puffing, dropping Ponzinibbio all over the place first couple rounds and just still gas tank depleting, I don't know, man. Online, it just looks like ultimately dude's got his gym, looks to be making a good living coaching and pick up a fight every now and then for a quick payday. Donchenko's the one to me that looks like he's trying to improve fight to fight. And I think you can say I've seen improvements from fight to fight because there's some regional tape of Donchenko that's honestly pretty ugly. I remember watching it last fight. But, man, what you see now is a dude who gets in your face, like you said, crazy volume, nasty elbows in the clinch. I trust his chin a lot more than I do Morono's. I think the gas tank's honestly quite comparable, and I just don't think Morono's. I don't know, man. I don't think will fight through the pressure when it gets tough. I think he might fold up, and I think Donchenko's going to get in his face and give him that option. Moving up to 205, we got Dustin Jacoby taking on Julius Walker. I watched Julius Walker's fight with Rafael Sequeira back this week, and it's hard for me to stay off Dustin Jacoby, dude. Walker's clearly outmatched on the feet in the striking department, and he'll go to it, but I'm not sold that his wrestling's great. And when he gets there, he's not dangerous at all on top. He gets sloppy. I feel like he's an athlete who's getting better at fighting, but at this point it's still super green. You got a guy in Dustin Jacoby who's got triple the fights. The competition gap is just absolutely insane. I was talking to you about this earlier. Jacoby's 9-4 since coming back to the UFC, but I know it's the Khalil Roundtree. Maybe I know there's another fight in there that people think that he should have won. You're talking arguably an 11-2 record in the second stint, finishing his last 3 wins as well. I told you, the last time that Jacoby fought an ex-basketball player in Justin Ledet, chopped that leg down, man. It was nasty. So, I don't know. Minus 185 feels a bit trappy, and I do know that Walker's going to press for those takedowns, but if I could get minus 160 or something, dude, I don't know. This is Jacoby or pass for me. I'm very tempted to play Dustin Jacoby this week, man. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I hope you pass is all I'm saying. I hope you pass. I think, you covered a lot of what I'm thinking as well, but Julius Walker, I just think at this point in both of these guys' career, he has much more upside. And I think at only 26 years old, he can put together a game plan to beat Dustin Jacoby at this point in his career. He is athletic. He is long. And those are, going to play a huge factor here. It doesn't mean that he has to be like the better MMA fighter. He just has to make this fight boring and not play into Dustin Jacoby's game. Jacoby's been, lucky, I guess, to not have to face too much of a grappling attack in his last few fights. And I feel like Julius Walker is going to kind of mix things up. again, it's not that Julius is like a much better MMA fighter. I just think it's where these guys are at in their MMA careers. I think you look at this just from take a step back, look at it completely objectively. You've got a 10-year or over a 10-year age gap and you're laying minus 200 on the guy who's 10 years older. That's just not a plus EV play. So if that alone gets you to back off, I recommend it. But yeah, Julius Walker or pass for me. I think he gets it done. I think that they put together a game plan, and I think that he moves forward. And Dustin Jacoby almost inevitably is going to be taking a step back here. He's a month away from 38 years old. I know you get away with it at 205, but 26 sounds much better right now. So Julius Walker, almost entirely because of age here, but I'll be taking him for sure. Moving on to the bantamweight division, Gene Matsumoto taking on Farid Basharat. I don't think that this fight's too close. After watching Matsumoto almost drop the fight against, I'm blanking on his name. Help me.
Argueta?
No, not even him. It was it him? I thought it was no, it was Miles Johns. Miles Johns. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He took him down a couple of times, and I think that Basharat's a much better grappler than Miles Johns, especially considering like that's his bread and butter. I think that he's going to be able to get to the positions that he wants. I think Matsumoto is good enough to fight out of it. He's strong enough to fight out of those positions and not get finished. But I think that Basharat's going to be able to take him down at will and just continue to go to the well over the course of 15 minutes, especially in a smaller octagon. I just think that we see a pretty frustrating fight for Gene Matsumoto, and we see Basharat get the dub here, probably by decision.
Yeah. Farid is a leg to my parlay this week. To me, one of these guys is a solid prospect, and one of these guys is Farid, and he's a future top 10 bantamweight, man. I really like what I see Farid. I think he's got the volume upside. I think he fights far better at range, knows how to use his defense, and his kicks way better. Ton of wrestling upside, like you said. We've seen Dan Argueta take him down, fall victim to the guillotine. I think the guillotine here is almost like Dan Hooker and BSD last week. It's just going to put you in Basharat's area where, dude, I've seen Basharat locked in a triangle against Blackshear. Like, dude will fight out of a submission. He's not tapping, dude. I feel like a guillotine, you just putting Basharat where he wants to be. I've seen him shoot north of 15 takedowns in a fight, being that this isn't a small cage. Just feel like John's going to be on the back foot a lot here. And I talk about this aspect when I talk about Merab a lot, dude. Like, and I don't want to compare Basharat on that level yet, but Basharat just gives you a lot of volume, a lot of kicks, and then a lot of takedowns to think about. And you're fighting off so much offense that you're not able to get a lot of offense out on your own. And that kind of brings it to your point. It's kind of going to be like just a frustrating fight for John Matsumoto because it's just going to be defending a lot all fight. And so glad to see. Think it's the same way, man. I'm on the Farid Basharat side here. Really good fight. I like this one, man. At 185, Mikhail Olasechek taking on Marc-Andre Barriault. And at one time, probably a much closer fight than it is. But, dude, Lord Mikhail's trending up at this point. He's in the right weight class, at the Fighting Nerds, got the confidence of a win streak. And I can't really say the same for MAB. Looking a little bit slower, durability failing at this time. And that's not good for a guy who really relies on eating those shots to be able to get into the pocket, to get his clinch, to work the dirty boxing. Don't like to see the chin let you down there. And so, Olasechek to me has the faster hands, is a much better boxer. And the way he comes forward early, I think he's going to land on Marc-Andre, and I ultimately think he's going to put him away early. Maybe it gets hairy if it extends. Maybe that's where we see the grind of Marc-Andre come back, but I feel like he's going to have to walk through an early storm, and I don't think he's able to do so. So I like
Olasechek. Actually kind of tempted on the under 1.5 here, minus 175. I like violence early, I feel like Olasechek will wilt in under 7.5 minutes to the pressure if it may be still there. So like to hear your thoughts. Like to hear your thoughts on the under as well.
Matt, so this is a Marc-Andre decision only plus 155 play for me. I think that if he doesn't get knocked out, he wins this fight pretty easily. And like I just think he has to get past that first round where Olajaychuk has made his name on that left hand, especially early when he's still carrying the power. But outside of that, if Marc Andre is able to wear on him, I think that there's a pretty good chance he wins a decision. At least the last half of round 2, which is going to weigh in on the judges' scorecards, and then for sure round 3. So Marc-Andre Barriault, I don't think he wins this fight, and I think that your under probably hits. But in the instance that it doesn't, I will be getting paid because Marc-Andre Barriault by decision only is going to hit. So I think that I'm either going to get a null bet or Marc-Andre decision only, and I'm still getting plus money. So that is how I'm looking at betting this fight.
Barriault decision by itself is plus 1,000.
Yeah, it's just he's gonna get finished. Like I know he's gonna get finished, so I'm making this bet on it's just a bet. I know it's gonna get nullified, but whatever. I still feel like, I mean, wouldn't you agree? Like if you knew that this fight goes to decision, you'd bet Barriault, right?
I do feel like that 1,000%, but I feel like if my under doesn't hit, that you're probably on the right track of it probably going to a Barriault decision. So
yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm scared to play that, but I do think I'm actually going to find myself on it. I was looking at it earlier this week, and I'm like, yeah, that actually makes a whole lot of sense. I was happy that we were still getting plus money because I thought that was going to be a situation where I had to bet, minus 110 for Barriault, and he's a plus 280. So yeah, plus 155, Barriault by decision. I like it. Moving on to the heavyweight division, we have Jailton Almeida versus Rizvan Kuniev. Me and you kind of disagree on this one a little bit, I believe. I think that Kuniev is kind of being disrespected here a little bit. I think that he's a full-sized heavyweight, and I think that he can replicate a similar game plan to Curtis Blades whenever Jailton fought Curtis Blades. If he can simply not get submitted in that first round and really make Jailton work for these takedowns, I think that he is just going to big body him, weigh on him, really wear out those muscles of Jailton Almeida. And it only really takes you to stuff 2 of his takedowns before he gets discouraged and puts himself in vulnerable positions. And I think that those are the positions that Rizvan Kuniev can capitalize on. Like I said, he's got to avoid that takedown and the sub in round 1. Yeah. But if he gets out of that, man, I do think that Kuniev has a really good shot of winning. I don't think he's as good as other top-ranked heavyweights, but Jailton is a 205er that doesn't want to cut weight. And even though he's doing pretty damn good here at heavyweight, I think that this is kind of where it catches up to him. 230 pounds, cut 25 pounds, dude. Come on. I mean, you're a 205er, and he'd be dominant at 205. I don't really understand why he doesn't do it. You're a professional. I know it's better to eat whenever, you don't have to watch your weight at heavyweight, but you're not a true heavyweight. So, yeah, give me Rizvan Kuniev here, just a big boy him.
Yeah, I got Almeida. I took him at minus 142. And he's going to look minus 400 when he wins on Saturday, dude, like he always does. And if I do see it going south, I feel like it's after a dominant round 1, and I'm going to have the chance to buy out live on the Kuniev side, But, when I watched the Curtis Blades fight back, it's a close fight. But when you look at the scorecard and you see how the judges give Curtis Blades round 3, that's where you can kind of bring in the argument that Curtis Blades might not have should have won that fight because Kuniev won round 3. Cardio still looked decent there, and that's the one worry, if it does get hairy late. But Derek Lewis isn't the great example, but, I've seen him grapple for 5 rounds for a guy, and also the Volkov fight. Like, both of these guys are probably robbed in their last one. Like, Almeida, the only reason Almeida didn't get the win last time against Volkov is because they owed Volkov a win from him beating Cyril Gahn, and they were like, oh, you just got grapple fucked but didn't get any damage done to you. We'll slide you a dub. But Almeida won that fight, dude. And I think Almeida could do the same here. I think he's going to be able to find – he's just a different level of heavyweight. Heavyweights don't often have to practice defensive grappling. They don't have to practice getting up from their back. And when a guy blast doubles you and puts you there and has the control in the jiu-jitsu, it's just different for these heavyweights. And when I watched Curtis take Kuniev down in round 1, I watched this guy literally turtle up to his back and bear crawl to the cage. And it's just, again, when you don't have to drill that kind of stuff, and then you got Almeida who will take the back, who will sink the hooks in, will climb your back on the cage too, man. I think Almeida's getting to his positions. I think he's getting them to him early. I think he can finish early. I talked about the buyout opportunity if I do see it going south, but hardly ever do you get a playable line on Almeida, and I think he looks pretty good Saturday. So I like Jalton Almeida. Hate that we're disagreeing, but it's a pretty common theme this fight. Like you said, I don't know how one of us are going to make money on Saturday. Co-main event at flyweight, Amir Albazi taking on Horiguchi. I think UFC knows what they're doing for Horiguchi. I think they know the time is now for the guy who's 34, 35 years old. It's the second stint in the UFC, and to me, they gave him the easy, top, beatable name they can in the division, man. You get through Amir Albazi, and you're up there with the Tyras, you're up there with the Morenos, with the Royvals, with the Cops. Like, I think Horiguchi, if he wins here and looks impressive, he could be in a title eliminator, man. I don't really see where Albazi is the better fighter. Like, I see where theoretically he's supposed to be, but I don't think he's going to be able to get to those positions on the mat. I don't think he's fast enough. I trust the defensive grappling of Horiguchi, and on the feet, it's all Horiguchi, man. He's so much faster. Blitzes in and out of style, karate, the leg kicks up to gear were nasty. And then you want to throw in all the injuries Albazi's had to deal with. The interviews that this guy talks about and the neck injuries is I wouldn't bet this guy plus 700 the way he talks about being a couple punches away from not being able to walk, So the only showing I have of this guy in the last 2+ years is the Brandon Moreno fight where dude looked like he never got off the stool in round one, could just never get going, look gun shy. And so to me, this is Horiguchi all day until I see something different. So I got 2 units, Fareed Basharat, Horiguchi, minus 133. That's my only other bet outside of Almeida. But I know you're liking a big dog shot on Albazi on Saturday potentially.
Yeah, I mean, if you give me a for sure healthy Albazi, I think that this line is just ridiculous, man. We're talking about smaller cage and at the apex. Amir Albazi, I think if he gets to his back, the round's done. I know his last fight against Moreno, he lost, but if that was a 3-round fight, it might not be the same. I think he can really sell out for the takedowns here. And although I agree Horiguchi should be the favorite, I told you earlier, I think he should be a minus 170. Sure, he wins more often than not, but if you're going to give me Albazi, one of the best in the division, at plus 300 or more, I'm going to take it. I think it's plus EV. These are really good. Both of these guys are really, really good, and I think it's going to be a competitive fight no matter how it gets drawn up. And I think it's really hard for me to believe that Horiguchi is going to cover his price tag, especially now that it's been bet up to where it is. So, yeah, I think it's a plus EV play to play Amir Albazi, who the environment is working in his favor in the smaller octagon. He is just looking to, negate the striking of Horiguchi. And Horiguchi, I think a lot of people are putting a lot of weight into his last performance against Tagir. And while I think Tagir is good, I think Amir Albazi is better. And truth be told, that looked like the worst Tagir that I've seen in a really long time. I thought he looked flat from the jump, and he just never really got to his positions where he could actually win the fight. So maybe over a little bit, over performance for Horiguchi in his last one, and then a lot of question marks from the Albazi side has all turned into this line that's just ridiculous in my opinion. So Albazi is definitely where my money is going to be placed on Saturday. So moving on to the bantamweight division, Mario Bautista taking on Vinicius Oliveira. In a 5-rounder, man, this is Bautista all day. Vinicius Oliveira is somebody who looks to break people, and Mario Bautista is just not somebody to be broke. We have seen him get caught in the past a couple of times, actually, and that does worry me a little bit. So, laying the price tag on him is a little concerning because Vinicius does throw with power. He's quick, and I think if he sees the opportunity he smells blood. We've seen it with a few of his knockouts. He really goes for it. And that could be a problem if he is successful in catching Bautista. But generally speaking, I think Bautista wins this out of 100 times. Like we're talking like 70, something like that. Like I think he wins maybe more. I don't know. He's a much more well-rounded fighter. I think he's paced a whole lot better. I think he has amazing cardio. And even though he's not always the most exciting fighter to watch, I think that he's really good. And I think that he gets the dub on Saturday. So he is the pick for sure, but not sure if I'll actually get there on the money line.
Kind of, I don't want to say gone back and forth all week, but kind of looked at Mario Bautista, kind of looked at an under, said I was just going to pass. Really, really good fight, though, altogether, man. Reminds me of the David Onama and Steve Garcia fight. It's ranked guys, but neither are like household names. But this should be a banger from the opening bell. Should be a good fight. Bautista, I think prior to the Umar fight, it was like 8 fights in a row, dude. You're talking about an extremely, extremely well-rounded guy, like not weak in anywhere, can put the pressure on, can box, has wrestling upside. You touch on the gas tank, which could be the best part of his game. Like, I think 5 rounds, like you said, clearly favors Mario's side. He's just not as dangerous as Lock Dog, man. Like, Vinicius sits down on some shots. He'll almost like a Conor McGregor, like a Mauricio Hoofy, he'll plant his feet and lean back and counter, the KO of Bernardo Sopage. That's going to be a highlight forever. That's top 3 KOs last year. And it's just the guy sees you. It might not ever be an issue if Bautista's never going to fade, but when Vinicius sees that, he can get his flow, when he gets confidence, he's dangerous. I worry about the guy in championship rounds. The Sopage fight altogether, getting grappled early in that fight worries me. I'm worried that he's going to get taken down and not be able to get off his back. I watched the Mario Bautista fight with Jose Aldo, and why can't he do the same here? It's a small cage. Why can't he click him up, put him on the cage, wear him out, take some of that power out, and get to these championship rounds where he really can take advantage? So then, you talk about Bautista being hurt in the past. Oliveira's been TKO'd stiff like 3 times, dude, So, and that's by regional guys, not even in the UFC. So, wouldn't be shocked if this comes out and Bautista just shows him it's a levels fight. So, at the end of the day, I like to hear you say that you're super confident on Bautista's side. He's down to -170 after seeing him in like the -190s this week. So, Oliveira's getting some love, but I'm on the Bautista side too as well. But I really think that 5 rounds is just something you can't overlook. And he's just a really elite fighter, and I think he proves it on Saturday. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. That's all 13 fights going down at UFC Vegas 113. First time at the new Meta Apex. Make sure to hang out with us last week. Some change to the podcast coming. Going to throw in some new things that we like, spice it up a little bit, give out some good bets and everything. So y'all make sure to check back with us. Like and subscribe. We'll see y'all then.
Peace.